Hi everyone, I'm Kate McCauley. Welcome. It is the game on one shoulder top and it's our latest obsession. It is so fun and it's so easy to wear. We know you're going to love it. You don't have to pull it into place. It will pop it on and it sits into place just like a normal top. You don't really have to worry about this falling down. It just sits there shaped to your body. If your fabric is a little bit lighter, you might want to bring this in a little bit, but most of the time you won't actually need to. So let me tell you a little bit about this top. There are 3 different shapes you can make. You can make the semi-fitted one like this one, you can make a flared one, and you can make a banded one. You can put the open shoulder on whichever side you like. There's long sleeve, cuff sleeve, 3/4 sleeve, half sleeve and short sleeve. So you've got all those ones to choose from, and it can be made in so many different sorts of fabrics. This is a really light viscose. We've used sweater knits, we've used polys, we've used prints, we've used plains, we've used a little bit of glitter. It really just depends on the sort of top that you want to create. Okay, today's sewing. I'm going to be sewing it together with my overlocker, my 4-thread overlocker and my cover stitch machine. So I have the 2 sleeves and the neckband and the front and the back pieces. So let's get started. All right, let's get started. So step 1 is super easy. We are going to put the front and back together. There we go. So we lay down the back, lay the front on top, and we're just going to sew across the shoulder. There we go. Easily done. Now for those just beginning, I always leave a tail on my overlocking, because if you're fiddling with it to add things in, it can easily unravel. So just leave a tail like that. Okay, the next step is adding the full sleeve. So you open up your whole piece like that. So there's your armhole. Now I like to pop a pin in our double notch here and our single notch there, and that way I can easily see where I need to match to. Okay, let's push my seam towards the back, grab my full sleeve. Okay, so this is my full sleeve. So the first thing I want to do is align this notch on the full sleeve, so the center notch on the top of the sleeve head, with my shoulder. So line that up and pin. Seam towards the back. Next we're going to line up the double notch here and the double notch here. Next we'll line up the end of the sleeve with the end of the armhole. We're going to repeat that on the other side. So we line up the single notch with the front armhole, pop in our pin, and line up the end of the sleeve with the end of the armhole. Okay, so if you can see, we've pinned in the sleeve. Okay, so then what you can do, now you don't have to do this, but if you are new, it does help. So this bit here, between the end of the sleeve and the first notch, that fits in smoothly. So they should be pretty much the same length. Now, this bit here, between the notch and the sleeve head, you will see how it's bigger? So you can kind of pull that out and just have a fiddle with it and try to get that in smoothly. I hold it between my, like that, so between there, and then on that side as well. And then I kind of just play around to try and get that even. and then I pop in a pin. Now you don't have to do it now, you can do it on the machine. So I will leave this one and I'll show you how I do this one on the machine. And this side here, remember between the notch and the end of the sleeve, that is the same length. All right, let's go over to the machine and sew that. This first bit is easy. It will match evenly as I explained before. So let's have a go. So we just pop in the sleeve. Now, one little tip that I do, so let me grab my pins, is I pull this pin out, obviously, and hold it here. I lift up my foot and I shove it right up there under the foot and then overlock. Now, not stretching. Now, when I take out a pin, I make sure I put a finger where the notch is so that I'm keeping the distribution of the fabric exactly how it was when I put the pin in there in the first place. Okay, so then we just manipulate that a little bit. There we go. Coming up to the shoulder, make sure your seam is towards the back. And you just have to keep manipulating it to get your raw edges even and aligned. There we go. Our sleeve head is in. So for those that are new to sewing in an armhole, let's go over that again. Sewing on this one and lining it up without pins. So you want this smoothed out, this underpiece. Now, if you lift this up, you can see how the edge of one of your armhole is here, but the edge of your sleeve is curved. So you just need to gently manipulate that, and it's just gently. You're not stretching too much. You just want to manipulate it in like that. Hold it with your fingers. Now, I stop before I get to the shoulder, and I line up this side first before I take this pin out. There we go. Now make sure your seam is towards the back. Okay, so now I've got this side of the shoulder, this side of the armhole nice and smooth as well. So, and I haven't reached the shoulder yet, so I take that pin out. And if you do this in one go, it will keep it nice and smooth and you won't get kind of a corner on the shoulder. And then just keep going to the end. Okay, so there we go. Our sleeve head is in. Let me show you. Okay, so there's the shoulder and there's the neckline. And that's what it would look like. So just remember, don't stretch this as you sew. You just need to kind of manipulate it so that your raw edges align. All right, let's go and do the other sleeve. So this is the cutaway sleeve. Here is our cutaway sleeve, and we have a double notch and a single notch. So double notch means back, single notch means front, and then also make sure you've got this one too, because you've got to need that for the neckline. All right, let's grab our garment. Find the other armhole. Here we go. There's the back. There's our double armhole, our double notch. So we're going to align those. And then we're going to overlock along there. There we go. So there is the back and our sleeve is overlocked on. So then let's find the front. Where is she? There we go. Okay, single notch. So we bring the sleeve around, matching the notches. So matching these notches here. And then we're going to overlock around there. And there is the front sleeve. So if we open it out, there we go. There we have our full sleeve. And then we have our cutaway sleeve. So the next thing we're going to do is the side seams and the arms. So pinning those together, I start right here at the armhole. My daughter's making bread. That's what that thumping is. So I align the armhole seams and I have the seam pointing towards the sleeve. Align the hem. There we go. And then pop one or two in between along the side seam. Okay, now with the sleeve. So this is the long sleeve. So we have 2 notches and the hem to align. So let's align that hem first. Now from here to here, so from the armhole seam to here is even. From the notch to the sleeve hem, that is even as well. This here, see how it's, can you see that? So all you need to do when you're sewing is just stretch that the tiniest bit, because that is going to go along the curve of your arm. Voila. Okay, let's go and sew it. Now remember, we want this seam here, we want that pushed towards the sleeve as we overlock. Okay, let's get sewing this seam. Make sure you've got your tails out and the seam allowance pushed towards the sleeve. Holding your finger, taking the pin out and holding it there. Okay, now this bit here, I'm going to take this pin out. So this is the bit, you see that? It's longer. So this is how much you're stretching it, just that much. So it's barely a stretch. And there you go. Okay, and there is your side seam and your arm seam. And then we just do exactly the same thing on the other side. All pinned, and we will go and sew that. And there you go, she is taking shape. Now don't worry too much if you have any of these kind of wavy bits, because you can just steam them down with the iron, like hold, hold, hold with the iron, really simple. So the alignment points we're going to use are the one on the front neckline, the double notch on the back neckline, the shoulder, and the single notch on the cutaway arm. We have our band. Sometimes, depending on the fabric, I will fold that in half and give it an iron. It's not entirely necessary. So just fold in half in a pin. Now you're going to sew along here either with a straight stitch or overlocking, it's up to you. And there you go, I've overlocked along there. Now you've also got, this neckband is divided into quarters. So here, a notch at the halfway point and the matching notch here. So we're going to fold this in half. Now, if I align this seam to another seam, I will just fold it and fold it like that, and I'll push my neckband seam one way and my garment seam the other way. But this one, I like to align this seam to center back, because it helps me know where the center back of the top is. So what I do here is I hold this one this way, I flip that one that way, and then I fold it in half. So I don't know if you can see that, but one seam allowance is going this direction and one this direction, but the seam is even. And then I pop my pin in there. And then I align these ones. And there you go. There you have your band. Now, depending on my fabric, I might put a notch halfway in between. You can fold that like so. If you're having trouble with your necklines, I would fold it and then put a pin in there. And then do that all the way around to mark your eighths. But what I tend to do is this. I just randomly put them in. The most important thing is to align and stop this from twisting. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to add that to my neckline. So first things first, let's find that double notch, which is there. And we will align this center back seam right in the center of that double notch. Okay, bring that out. Make sure that's all nice and even. And then we're going to align this one, the center one, with that front notch. And then we're going to align the quarter one with the shoulder and the seam allowance towards the back. And other side, the other quarter one with that notch on the sleeve, on the cutaway sleeve. All right, so we've marked our quarters. Now, if you're experienced at putting on bands and you don't have a problem, then you probably just do it as quickly as that. So if you're having trouble, this is what I do. This part of, I found that I use this part of my hands a lot for gripping. So I kind of grip it in there at those 2 points and I stretch and I just use my fingers to keep that even, and then I shift that pin. So that's distributed nice and evenly. So let's do that again. Let's just fix this pin. All right, so I hold it through like there, here and here. Stretch it out evenly. Don't stretch it too far, only as much as you need to. And then pop one in here. Now this armhole seam, remember, it's towards the sleeve. Okay, and then I check. Looks pretty even all the way around. So now I'm going to sew around, and I start at the back here, just before center back, or just up at the shoulder. Just, yeah, where it can't be seen. Okay, let's sew this neckband on. I do it with my garment inside out, and I have my band facing on top. Now let's find the center back. Okay, so to start, you've got your band here and you've got your top here, which is a little bit bigger. So I stretch that out it's a smaller stretch. And I hold it out, lift my foot up and pop it under, and just make sure you're not, oops, a daisy. Okay, there we go. And I pop my foot down, but I keep holding it. Now, the really important thing when you're doing the neckband or any band is to keep the stretch even all the way around. So let's start sewing. Now, just before the centre back neck, because I've got a pin there, I stop. I hold at my next point and my pin point. I pull my pin out. And the important thing is to keep holding at the same pressure until you pull the pin out. So let's make sure that's facing the right way. Pull the pin out. All right, and it's okay to let go if you haven't pulled that pin out. I've still got this notched pin here. So again, my seam towards the sleeve, straighten that up, and you only pull as much as you need to. And there you go, your band is on. So let's take a look. So this is the back. We started here, so it looks pretty even. There we go. Now, don't worry that it's a little bit wavy because your ironing will fix that. So we'll do that in a little bit. Let's go and do our hems and then we'll get up to the ironing last. Okay, hems. Just clip your tails a little bit, leave it a little bit there. Now, this is how I do mine. It's simple as this. I don't have a trick. I just mark 1.5 centimeters all the way around. Okay. And then just turn. Okay, so we're all pinned. There we go. So we're pinned all the way around. So let's go and sew along there. Okay, I'm using my cover stitch machine. This is the side seam and I start on the back. And I just line it up here for this particular one and then sew. And there you go, your hem is done. So now at the same time you can do your neckline. So starting at the back. Now for this one, I line up the seam here with, I've got a clear foot. I line it up with this second line and that keeps my stitching as even as possible. Sorry, I lined it up with the, not the second line, but the second edge in from the foot. So my seam allowance is facing away from my band. And there, can you see that? Is my neckband. Now at the same time you can do your cuff. So I keep it inside out and I measure 1.5. These little boo rulers come in handy. Turn that under. Now remember this seam allowance has to be pushed towards the back, so you probably need to check that once you've pinned it. Okay, so there is your sleeve pinned. So we're going to start at the seam, pop that under. Okay, so we're going to start with at the seam, so pop that under. I'm going to try and keep my hands out the way. So pop that under first at the seam. Okay. Now we just sew. Now try not to stretch. So let's talk about ironing. For me, ironing is one of the most important parts of the whole process. You've just made this whole top, like you spent time choosing your fabric, deciding your size, cutting it out, sticking it together, sewing this together. To not iron it, it's crazy. So iron it. Okay, so here's what I do. I just have the same process. All my long seams I iron flat. So these seams down here, I iron flat, and then I iron towards the back for side seams. Hemlines I iron flat, and necklines I iron flat. So let's have a go. This magnet sticks quite hard. So I iron flat first, and then I pop it over the edge. And I iron the seam towards the back. This is the side seam. All right, for the hem, I just iron it flat. Down. And then those little side seam bits. And if you have your scissors handy, these little threads sticking out the bottom from the overlock or at the hem, just snip those off. The armhole seam, so your armhole seam is pushed towards the back, so I just pop it over the edge of my table here, again not stretching it, and just gently all right, neckline. So the first thing I do is iron it flat. Right, now if I find that after I do that, I do have a few more wrinkles, I just pop it over the end of my machine, my ironing board again, and just go over those little spots. Do the shoulder. I use heaps of steam. I love steam. All right, the sleeve. Again, I iron the hem flat. The sleeve seam, it kind of depends. So sometimes I just iron it flat, but sometimes I will make the effort to iron it towards the back. Then I check it from the right side. Like, it's really simple. I mean, it's the same way that you'd iron any top if you were to wear it out. I must admit, I'm not a huge ironer, but I always iron something that I sew. All right, let us have a look at that. How is that sitting? That looks pretty good. All right, that looks pretty good. So that's all ironed nice and flat, no lumps and bumps. I'll go and put it on. And there we go. She's all done. She stays in place really, really easily. Just pop her on. My adjusted sleeves fit perfectly. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the group. Now don't forget to subscribe. press the red button.